the end, we can unmute and say goodbyes. All right. Okay, so we are ready to get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a new year of Bluestem Chats. This is our very first one of 2023. My name is Kim Hazel Rudden. I am the Bluestem Publicity Co-Chair, and I'm going to turn it over to Heidi to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Heidi Knuth. I am the Bluestem Chair and a public librarian in the Youth Services Department at the Bloomingdale Public Library.
Hi, I'm Heather Cribbs. I'm the Publicity Co-Chair along with Kim, and I'm a K-5 STEM teacher in Berkeley.
And hi, I'm Caroline Campbell, and I'm a retired school librarian, and I'm taking care of the Zoom room for you today.
Right. We have classes throughout the state of Illinois, and they're going to be asking our author questions, and I'm going to introduce her now. Today we have Amanda Obler, and she is going to talk to us about her book, The Spirit of Springer. So I'm going to turn over to her for a second, then we're going to get started with questions from Miss Gilbert's class.
Hi, I'm Amanda Obler, and like Kimberly just said, I'm the author of The Spirit of Springer, the real life rescue of an orphaned orca. It's a nonfiction picture book, which means it's true, and I did all the research for it, so I can guarantee that. And I'm happy to be here to answer any questions you have about the book.
Right, thank you so much. And we will start with Miss Gilbert's class. So your first student wants to ask a question. Go ahead, I'll turn over to you guys.
What research did you do before writing the book?
Well, I've read a lot of books about orcas, and I did general information about orcas. And then to learn about Springer's story, I contacted Dr. Lance Barrett Leonard, who is a marine mammal scientist at the Vancouver Aquarium in Vancouver, Canada. And I asked him all about his experience working with Springer and helping rescue her. And so he told me about all the things that happened. And I also read a book that an adult book that someone had written about experiences with Springer and her rescue.
Okay, go ahead, say your name.
I'm Elena, and is this your first book you have written, or have you written others?
So this is actually my first book that I had published. I have to say that I wrote other books that I tried to get published that didn't get published. And since this book, since The Spirit of Springer came out, I have had another book also get published. And I have another one that comes out in a couple of years. But this is my very first one, which was very exciting for me.
Thank you. All right, we'll go over to Miss Dubin's class. So your first student wants to come up.
My name is Kaylee, and I wanted to know what inspired you to become an author.
Oh, that's a good question. You know, as a kid, I really liked reading, and I still love reading, and I love books, which I think a lot of authors say. And then in particular, I got into writing nonfiction because I have a science background. I was actually a biology major when I was in college. I didn't plan on writing, even though in the back of my mind, I kind of thought about it. And then later in my life, I decided that I really did want to write, and I tried to combine those two things, like all the science stuff that I like, and then the writing, and then put them together.
Hi, my name is Jaden. How did you feel when you found out your book was a Bluestem?
When it was going to get published? Yeah, I was so excited. I almost couldn't believe it. I remember I got the email from my editor, and I had, you know, it had been a lot of years of trying to get published. And I think I just was in shock, but so happy and so excited. And then, you know, the day that my book arrived, it was like just about before Christmas time. So it felt like a Christmas present to me to actually get to hold it and see it. That was very exciting.
So we'll go to Clow Elementary. So if you're ready with your first student.
So we submitted the questions via the Google form. Can you pull some of those?
Okay, I'll do that in just a moment. So I'll go back to Miss Gilbert's class and then I'll try to pull those questions up. So go ahead, Miss Gilbert's class, and then hopefully I'll have Cloud ones ready.
Okay, go ahead.
How long did it take to write this book?
Let's see. So from the time that I had the idea to write the book till when I finished, I'll say, my first rough draft, it was probably about 4 months for me to do all the research and to write it. But then once I sent it to my editor, I had to do a lot of different changes to it. And then it actually took 3 years for it to get published, just because once it got accepted by the publisher, then it had to get illustrated and that type of thing. But probably from the time I first wrote till it was my final piece was completed, it was probably about a whole year.
Wait, hold on. Hold, start again. Sorry.
What is your favorite part of this book?
Let's see. I'm going to show you. I have 2 favorite things I like in this book. I love this picture that Levi Hastings painted. I think it just it says so much. It's when the Springer is finally back in Canada and she's so happy and she sort of knows she's back home. So I love that part. And then I will say another favorite part is my final pages that I spent, even though it's not a lot of writing, I spent a really long time thinking about how I wanted to end this book and what was important to me about this story. So I would say this is the part I am most proud of.
All right, so I was able to pull up the questions from Cloud. Sorry, I have too many tabs open. Let me get those back up here. We have the first question is, how did the researchers know about the different pods? It says, did you travel with the researchers when they found and saved Springer?
I wish that I had gotten to travel with the researchers and see Springer, but unfortunately I didn't. I didn't learn about Springer's story till about probably 12 years after it happened. So I learned about it from watching a movie. I'd like a documentary that was made about Springer's rescue. And the way that the Orca researchers learn about the different pods is taken a really long time. For over, I guess, probably the last 50 years or so, researchers go out in boats and they observe the different orcas that they see. They take pictures. Here, I'm going to show you. They take pictures of the dorsal fins to identify the different orcas, because all of the orcas have a different shape to their fin or a different saddle patch. That's the little white patch on the back. Sometimes an orca will have a little chunk missing out of its fin if it's run into something or maybe get into a fight with a shark. We don't know. So the researchers take all these pictures of the different orcas and they catalog them, and they notice who they see over and over again and keep track of them. And so that's one part, visually with their eyes seeing the orcas, but then they also have spent a long time listening to the orcas. So they put microphones under the water, they're called hydrophones. They listen to the orcas, and scientists have been recording the calls that the orcas make for a really long time, like I said, probably about 50 years. And listening to the different sounds that the orcas make. It's been a lot of research that the scientists have done. And then one final piece that actually Dr. Lance Barrett Leonard did was he did a DNA sample of all the orcas, in the Puget Sound, which is like near Seattle and near Canada. And so he took a DNA sample of as many orcas as he could find, and then he could tell exactly which orca was which based on their DNA. I'm not sure if people have learned about DNA. I bet a lot of you have.
Thank you. So we'll go to Miss Dubin's students.
I'm Jacob K, and my question is, how did you pick your illustrator?
Oh, that's a good question. I actually did not pick my illustrator. When my publisher decided to publish the book, my editor, actually, some of you might know Ben Clanton, who writes the Narwhal and Jelly books. Raise your hand if you know the Narwhal and Jelly books. Anybody? Yeah, I love those books. He was actually my editor. I feel really special that I got to work with Ben. So he said, Amanda, what kind of illustrations do you like? Like what type of thing are you thinking about for your book? So I looked at some illustrators and I sent him some examples, and then he went and picked the illustrator. And he found Levi Hastings because Levi also really loves orcas, and he had done a spread in a newspaper, on an online newspaper that had a lot of illustrations of orcas. So it was actually Ben Clanton who chose the illustrator.
My name is Santi. And my question is, have you ever doubted yourself?
Have I ever doubted myself? That's a good question and very deep. And absolutely, I definitely have doubted myself. I will say, even this morning, like anytime I sit down to write, I have to remind myself, I know this is going to be hard, but I can still do it. And this morning I was working on another book and working on a proposal and putting the information down. And I thought, oh, is this good enough? I thought I can do it. I just have to keep reminding myself. But I think it's normal to doubt yourself, and then you just have to remind yourself to keep going, right?
Thank you. So I have another couple questions from Cloud Elementary. One of them says, have you ever seen an orca in the wild?
I have. Not actually, I have seen pretty up close. Because I live near Seattle, there are a lot of orcas in this area. So a couple times, like my local park, which is, I don't know, just down the street that has a water view, I've seen orcas go by there. And then actually one time I was up in Alaska out on a boat, and the orcas came up really close to our boat, and that was very exciting. And they're so beautiful and so big. It's just amazing. I wish I had seen more. I wish I could have seen more of them. Hopefully I will.
All right. And another question from Klaus says, what were your feelings when you were writing this book?
I think my biggest feeling about this book is when I watched that documentary, the movie about Springer. Once I heard her story, I just felt like it was almost too good to be true. And that's why I wanted to write it. I just thought, oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's so amazing. This orca that gets lost and loses her family, and then she gets reunited with her family. It just felt like, if I had written this as a fiction story, it would almost seem too good. And so that's really why I loved it. Just too good to be true, but it is. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, I just wanted you to read my lips for a second. We're going to go to Ms. Gilbert's class.
Okay. What age did you start writing books?
Oh, well, I have to say, as a kid, even in elementary school, I really liked to write stories. And so I would say my first time I wrote like a really long story was in 6th grade. One of my favorite authors was Judy Blume. I don't know if anybody really reads that as much anymore, but like Tales of 4th Grade Nothing and Super Fudge. Do you guys know those? Anybody? Raise your hand if you know those books. Anybody? Yeah, she was my favorite author. So I tried to write a book like her book, and I wrote a long book in 6th grade. But then as an adult, I went to college And I actually thought I was going to be a doctor. That's what I planned to do. And in the meantime, I started doing some writing on the side. So probably when I was like 21, that I thought maybe I want to start really dabbling in stories as an adult.
How and why did you become an author?
Let's see, I became an author, I think just because I like books so much. And, you know, I thought about writing for a long time. And then also when I had my own kids, I think this happens a lot. I've read so many books with my kids, and it just reinforced how much I just love books. And I thought, I want to make some of my own. Yeah, and it is pretty fun, and books are awesome. Like, I love books still. Thanks.
Thank you. So Ms. Dubin's class, do you guys have some students who have more questions?
Kim.
My name's Aaliyah, and do you enjoy being an author? And what is your favorite part about being an author?
Let's see, I do enjoy being an author. There are a couple things that I like, different parts of the job, say. One thing that I really like about writing nonfiction is that, you know, I said I was a scientist as my background, and so I love learning about new things. So my favorite part about that is that as a nonfiction writer, I get to choose what I learn about. So if I decide like, hey, this idea sounds really interesting, and I get to go read lots of books. I go to the library. I always have like 25 books checked out of the library. I check out as many as I can about the topic I'm thinking about, and I go home and I read them. And that's really fun for me because I get to learn about all these different things. And then, so that's, I would say, is the writing part. But then I would say as an author part, my favorite part is probably the author visits with classes like you guys. It's really, yeah, it's really fun to get to talk to kids and yeah, hear all your questions. And I love to hear that people have read my book and hear what you think about it and what you've learned. So.
Hello, my name is Miles, and then what is your new book gonna be called? What's the new book gonna be called?
Oh, my new book that comes out in a couple of years.
Yeah.
It's going to be called. Is that what you're asking about? Yeah, it's going to be called Big Bertha, and it's about this giant drill that digs a tunnel under Seattle. So there used to be this highway that was like above the ground that went through Seattle, and then it was falling apart, and there are a lot of earthquakes in Seattle, or there can be, so they were worried it was going to fall down, so they dug a tunnel under Seattle. So it's all about that digging process and about this giant drill, which I have to say, this drill is, at the time, it was the biggest drill in the world that was ever built, and it's 5 stories tall. So you have to think of like a building that's 5 stories, it's that tall. So if you see a picture of the drill, if it's this tall, there's like this tiny person down here. It's so big. Yeah.
Okay, so we'll try to get one more question from each group, and I have one from Clow I'll start out with, and then after mine, then Miss Gilbert will go to you for one, and then Miss Dubin will go for you for the last one. So a student from Clow wanted to know, how many books have you made?
Oh, so I guess I have, it depends on what you say is made. Like I have 2 books. Yeah, so I have 2 books that are published, and then I have a 3rd one that comes out. So hopefully, so it should be 3 soon. Well.
Right, Miss Gilbert's class.
What inspired you to write the story?
So let's see. So when I first moved to Seattle, a friend of mine knew that I really liked orcas. So I've just always loved orcas. And she said, Amanda, you have to go camping on San Juan Island. There's this great campsite. It's right on the water. The orcas swim right by. You can watch them. So I packed up my family and we went and stayed for 3 days at that campsite. Raise your hand if you think I saw orcas when I was camping there. Anybody? Okay, now raise your hand if you think I didn't see orcas. No. we didn't see any orcas, but it was okay. It was still a great camping trip and it was really fun. So then at the end of the camping trip, we had to take a ferry back from the island to Seattle, and we stopped and there was a long wait for the ferry. So we went into this whale museum, and in the whale museum was the documentary playing about Springer. And that was where I first learned about her story. And like I said, after I watched that movie, I thought, this story is too good not to share with the rest of the world. I have to write it. And I couldn't believe that no one else had written it. That was kind of lucky on my part.
All right, and Ms. Dubin's class, if you want to ask the last question.
Kendall, what genre do you like to read?
Oh, what genre do I like to read? Well, I have to say, I've kind of gotten into nonfiction. As a kid and as a young adult, I always liked fiction, but recently, I think because I've doing a lot of research for my books, I read a lot of nonfiction, but also I've been enjoying just reading, or also I do a lot of listening to books. I do a lot of audiobooks. When I mow the lawn, I listen to audiobooks and things like that. And I listen to a lot of nonfiction. I just read a really great book called The Soul of an Octopus. So if anybody likes octopuses, it's a really, really interesting book.
Great. First, thank you to all the students who asked such amazing questions. You guys did such a great job. And thank you to Amanda for taking the time to answer questions. So classes, if you want to unmute and you can say your goodbyes, and hopefully we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. So much fun to hear your questions.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Yes, thank you.